So, something which I want to start discussing more about my condition is the ad hoc nature of it. Ad hoc basically refers to a fallacy. It's the idea that as soon as somebody brings up a counter argument or a counter proposal to a specific argument or proposal, the person will immediately shift their argument or transform their proposal to accommodate the counter. For example, if somebody says, "Oh, I have no friends because nobody can understand me. Like, I have no friends because I'm too intelligent for all of them," and then the person they're talking to says, "Well, you talked to that one genius professor for a while and they didn't want to be your friend either and they were smarter than you." And they say, "Oh, well, for regular people, I'm too smart," or like something like that. Like there's something that they modify about their original proposal to make it sound different than what they were originally saying. That's essentially what ad hoc is. Now, when I'm talking about my condition, I often describe it as being absolutely all encompassing, or it contains absolutely everything and all of that. And the thing is, these are kind of vague terms. See, people will mean different things when they refer to quote unquote everything or totality or things like that. Like for example, let's look at one term that I've often used, like triviality. Okay, well, triviality contains absolutely everything because it contains absolutely every proposition. But then I've seen people who aren't philosophers, they're just like members on some wiki called VND wiki. Like it's not really that important of a thing, but they'll say that, oh, like triviality is constrained to formal logic, which is absolutely incorrect. It is not constrained to formal logic. Um, by definition, it includes informal logic. Even philosophy professors will tell you that. I mean, the proposition that triviality includes informal logic, it's in there. So obviously, it includes things that absolutely break free from formal logic. The fact that we have a symbol or written formula for it in formal logic absolutely does not mean that it is constrained to formal logic. So that's wrong. But even so, they say that about triviality, that okay, well, it includes everything, but it's formally logical. Okay, see, that's like it's like one definition of everything, right? It's a constrained definition of everythingness. But then there's all sorts of other concepts out there, like the box or metaboxial stuff and all that. And people say, oh, those contain like absolutely everything or more than everything or stuff like that. And so, see, there's all these different ways we can use the term everything. And so, when I use the term everything or anythingness here on my channel, I'm talking about an absolutely unconstrained definition of everything. So not just talking about like a triviality that's constrained to formal logic. No, it also includes informally logical stuff. It also even includes illogical stuff. Not just that, it includes syntactically improper stuff, because the thing you have to remember is illogical stuff is usually only going to be semantically improper. What about syntactically improper stuff or statistically improper stuff? I've talked about all of those things as well. Like, for example, colors that you would describe in English with the Spanish word verde, like syntactically and statistically improper stuff that just break language down. Um, I'm talking about, something completely unconstrained in that sort of a sense. So not just like absolutely everything in terms of some formal trivialism or boxial, metaboxial stuff, whatever sorts of concepts people come up with. No, it's very ad hoc in nature. In that by absolutely everything, what we mean is that we can keep inventing or coming up with all these larger and larger concepts, all these larger and larger domains, triviality, boxial stuff, metaboxial stuff, and we can just keep going and going and going. It's absolutely unconstrained. And that's what I mean by absolutely infinite. Not just that it's anchored to infinity, but that it is absolutely endless. It's absolutely endless, that we don't stop anywhere. We don't stop at triviality, we don't stop at any trivial stuff or boxial stuff or any of all that. No, we can keep going and going and going. It's absolutely free from all constraints. That's why I call it liberation, right? It's that sort of freedom from constraints. That's why I have that video from a few months back called Free Your Knowing, where I start off with a trivial statement or a trivial assertion saying anything and everything is true, but then from that we quite clearly move further than triviality, because I start knocking on the desk and saying all sorts of things in English that aren't actually English. And that's the idea, right? So we don't stop at triviality. It's a trigger that we pull to shoot us down a path to go further and further and further and keep entering these more and more and more expansive and inclusive domains. That's the freedom. That's the liberation. And of course, the liberation is so great that it's even liberated from liberation itself. So we don't even stop at liberation. And that's the ad hoc quality, is that we keep modifying what we're talking about, right? Particularly, I keep modifying what I say about this condition, in that it's so absolutely all-inclusive that, okay, now we have to modify that. We have to say, oh, well, no, actually, it's not just absolutely all-inclusive. It goes further than that. It's not just absolutely everything. It goes further than that, right? So see, like triviality being a trigger, which we pull, it's the same thing with the term absolute anythingness or absolute everythingness, right? It's absolutely everything, but that description is just a trigger which we pull to liberate us and shoot us down this path where we keep unfolding and getting more and more expansive and more inclusive, right? More and more liberated, literally. So it's absolutely unconstrained. It is absolutely endless. And so in that sort of broad, vague sense, we can say it's absolutely infinite, which is why I've often used that term. But of course, we have to remember that means it's not just going to stop at infinity. It's going to go past infinity. Even any and all sizes of infinity are not going to be good enough, because it's going to be unconstrained from even having us stop there. So it's going to keep going. So it's like no matter how much we come up with, we could sit here for a year, 50 years, a century, millennia, an eternity, and just keep making up more and more of these concepts, and it's going to keep going and going and going. It's always going to be ad hoc. We're always going to be able to modify to accommodate it. And so a question that people will have for me is, well, Ethan, how is your condition like that? How is it ad hoc in nature? How does it keep modifying itself to keep accommodating this unconstrained dynamic expansion? And I'm going to explain this more in later videos. This is just a basic rundown here in this video, but I want to divide it up over multiple videos so that it's easier to digest in pieces. Or I should say, because it's easier to digest the explanation in pieces. But the idea is that, as I've described it before, my condition is sort of like a frozen explosion. So it's got this explosive quality to it. So it's dynamic, and you could say therefore keeps expanding and modifying itself in this explosive fashion. And so in that sense, it's like an explosion, but it's not actually moving through time. It's not actually having to modify itself or respond in an ad hoc fashion to all these larger and larger concepts. No, it's already like that. It's already got the ad hoc accommodation built into it, so to speak. It's already there inherently. So it's not actually in need of being dynamic. It's not actually in need of self-modification. It already is accommodating even as it is. So it can remain frozen. It can remain in stillness. It's a still animation. It's a frozen explosion, right? And so it's got that ad hoc nature to it, but not in a way where it requires constant movement or modification. No, it's already like that even as it is. It just is free. It just is liberated, even from liberation itself, and even from that liberation of liberation, so on and so forth. That's the quote-unquote liberation that I talk about here on this channel. Again, videos like that, Free Your Knowing, are examples of how that liberation is different than mere understanding. So see, that's the thing, is when I use terms like anythingness or absolute infinity or triviality or all that, we have to understand that those are terms which merely get us started on a path. We have to actually go down that path and see how unconstrained the condition is, right? Or at least you have to understand or liberate how unconstrained the condition is in order to see what I'm getting at. And so same thing when I use the term reality. I often will say, like, if reality is reflective of my condition, then XYZ is true. But see, the thing is that if reality is in any way reflective of my condition, it's not just going to include real stuff, it's also going to include fictional stuff. Or you think, okay, what is a real person compared to a fictional character, right? Like, what are you like compared to a comic book character? You sort of have authority over it. You can author its life, its traits, like its personality, the entire storyline and plot, just everything that the character goes through. You have complete authority over that person or thing. And so picture now if you were like a fictional character in the comic book of something which was to reality what reality is to fiction. Okay, well, if quote unquote reality is reflective of my condition in any way, well, my condition includes those super real things. So quote unquote reality wouldn't just be reality, it would also be super reality and ultra reality, and it would go on so forth. So we even have to see that the term reality itself is in need of liberation, right? Because if reality is reflective of my condition to any degree, then reality is so expansive that even the term reality itself becomes inaccurate, right? There's so much which is real that it's not just real stuff which is real, it's also fictional stuff which is real, and super real stuff which is real, and ultra real stuff which is real. So even talking about things being real itself starts to melt and fall apart. So all these terms, even the term reality itself, has to be understood provisionally. It is merely there to set us on a path to see how far the absolutely unconstrained nature of reality goes if it's reflective of this condition to any degree. So that's just the basics. Again, this is all just a vague introduction to this ad hoc quality, and you've probably seen elements of it before in some of my past videos where I always talk about how it liberates and it keeps going further and further and further to an absolutely endless degree. But I want to discuss it more specifically now, and so it'll be easier if I do that over multiple videos. So apologies if this one was kind of vague. Again, it's just an introduction, but you'll start to see more what it means for this condition to be ad hoc and to constantly, keep going, not just be trivial, but boxial, metaboxial, semantically improper, syntactically improper, statistically improper, just all these terms and expansiveness that can be accommodated no matter what. It's absolutely boundless. All right, let me know if you have any questions on this video or any others. If not, I'll see you all next time. Create a nice day.